Floating in line signature line streams and high set location settings. It's our relocation system. It's how we surface through our calculation line settings. It's our redirect location to its grounds. High calculation modification to its surface has to really understand how to use modifiers to its line communication system. 1 plus 1 equals line condition to its earth, right? Which is earth line setting line interference. The balance of the communication with human residents is changing track lines. That means it's changing a frequency line setting high interference and track communication settings. So we have to really understand how to react to everything through the location system, especially now because we're line connecting and high line location of weather patterns, right? Coming in line calculations of summer, winter, fall, and spring. The correlation system, the panels, line calculation settings coming in at 24 line signature line streams. Clock line centers of 24, 48, 72, 144. That 144 is an energy grid that rotates its surface location to Earth per section line setting. So in calculation line interference, how do I say this? Your calculation Earth perception is getting position locations into all levels. Coming into the line calculation settings into a raincoat, line condition to umbrella. Center lines and high line interference, a high track line communication settings, all redirect location of signals. So we have to really understand is to focus on ourselves more and more. The reason why is the calculations to react line setting, high interference, track communication setting and position is changing the T reception lines of communication, your inside positions. Because you guys are in generation line streams now, sending position locations to high setting. T reception lines of communications coming into 103. But see, the 103 is equal line conditions of 53. So we take the 3 and 3 line together, double helix line calculation setting. Your Earth perception is changing the frequency line setting instead of location. It's creating its own double helix of a portal communication line stream. Now this is going to the vortex chamber and sets lines of communication to higher level settings. This is going to open up higher levels and positions to your navigation system. Modulations of recore, line conditions of discord, calculation setting to broad bandwidth, the calculation line settings. Now this is the computer adaptation line setting in that rotation surface. In that calculation interference and track communication settings, it has to get into location to its own human residence coloration. So we're coming into new lines of high line interference, taking all density line and position locations into its 4 sequence locations of patterns. Now this gets in communications of north, south, and east. Now the line communication comes at heat signature pattern, position location, and track lines. So in that line communication setting that communication system to open line signal. Okay, the open line signal line interference. So you got a 24 line rotations, equal line condition settings, right? 24 line in 4, 24 line in 24 state locations, 3 line settings. So 24 lines of left, 24 lines of right, and 24 in the center. Okay. Now, coming to line communication, there it is. So make calculation. See the dimensional sail? Now, when you get in line communication setting in a track line, you have to all level its system lines of track. Okay, its center lines its communications. Now, this is where it comes into an orbit line setting. The rotation surface location near sun line is going to downshift its cross line stream. Setting calculation line interference, setting sonar panels and direction of time sequence line position 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 line is human residence set location setting. Setting line graph line calculation setting in positions of pi. All right. Pi circle line interference. Now we set line communications in position of 6. 6 crosses stream and center lines of north, lines of east location system. So the center communication lines at streamline in set locations. Right. So that's 24 measure, 24 calculations, 24 in streamlines. So we take line interference and sets line communication setting. Now this redirect locations to its 48 window. The 48 window sets line calculation line interference, and when it comes into 24 trillion set load conditions of pi, the center communication system is coming into your solar graph line setting. So the track line, set line, high interference is going to be in higher line communication system into measures of correlation. Setting communication settings in position of pi. Okay. Okay, so in that line communications, all levels, we track the line setting. Now, tracking line center is the center line communications. Right? Now, center line position of energy line setting, circle line communications, all levels. The rotation spin cycle, the Earth is going to set line communication set position. All right, so the Earth is here. It's at a frequency line of megahertz lines into all calculations. Okay, megajoules, inline communication interception setting location system. Now, the track line interference is sending communications to its moon. The moon operates its surface, but it sets lines of panel line rotations to another line position of track line. Center communication comes into the sun. Sun opposites its system location, coloration pattern, set location setting. Now, this redirect locations to Earth in set line conditions system, in line conditions to its dimensional sail. See it? Center line interference sets a line of a new ground operation surface. Dimensional line calculation streamlines sets correlates panels lines into electrical line panels, line interference, and track locations. Done by equation. All right. So getting in signals of panels, we have to really get in position locations. Earth line calculation. Okay. Sending track lines and high setting. Okay. Now, all lines of communication. So, line connections on line. This is going to spike lines and high line interference into electrical lines, a high setting. Okay. Now, this redefines set lines, electrical lines, and set location of plasma lines and energy light stream locations. Right. Graph line, center line interference comes in position location and still settings. Sun comes in, line tracks lines in alpha line into data position. Now, the rotation line interference is sun lines at center lines of 6 opens up its moon line rotation surface and set location system. Now, that travels line into the center line of triangulation of 3 set locations. All right, that my equation. All right, so I'm just centering its communication of frequencies. Okay, so again, we go through the center line communications. All right, now this time we track the communication into setting. Okay. That's where we change the frame line in position location of 6, in position locations of 8, in position locations in a 5 set location. Center line is really understand the center line communications of where it is to track location settings. So we take the lines of center line interference and travel its position locations in its operate direct line setting in position of 2 panels. Now the rotation spin, we get the UFO line, travel communication of sun line, sun travels line center location outline setting. We get another line UFO, line track line, coming out of the moon line rotation surface and set locations. Right? So it travels its center line, center communication setting, opens up another signal locations of panel, operation surface. Done by equation. Okay, center and communication setting is all about understanding how to, again, redefine set lines. Now, coming into a mega wave line center lines is wave line center line interference and track location system. Setting line condition system. So this is the connection levels of Schumann resonance. Now it has a tone line divider, and that defies line settings, all calculation settings. All right. So this is connections to escalade, alkylades, high line interference, high track line communication settings, a wave line center location system. Now, tracking communication to a Schumann resonance, really understand the rotation spin cycles, guys. Ground lines are rotation surface, all right? Now, this allocates this line interference. Now, this is where it comes into the caterpillars. Okay. Caterpillars. That's in the central communication or immune system. Okay. Bottom line setting, right? Now, the capillars sets lines of calculation of line stream. It sets a line connection high interference. Now, the track line communication is 1 over a line of 0 to 3. Now, that 3 line center lines its position. So we track communication settings into positions of a V line setting. V line settings line position locations to its Merkabah. Setting lines a strip line in the center communication opens up levels in a high calculation line setting. Okay. Now, in that direct line interference, it goes force lines of 45 line setting in degrees. Set location system. So it's degrees over triangle, degrees equal line condition system, box over triangle line communication. Right? Done by equation. Okay, so that's line communication setting, directing signal locations all levels. Now, opening up channel line interference is 103 set locations. Center line conditions cells, brackets, lines of 0 set locations, right? Center calculation line interference, position locations in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Set line conditions. So the pyramid sets a road graph line setting, direction of time sequence, center line, and center interference, okay? Now, the one line centers lines its ground lines, operates its surface locations, and travels its line center locations and 2 line conditions to its panels into its road graph location of stream. Now, indirect line center line interference, we set lines at equal line connecting line high interference locations. We take the 3 line and above line rotations equal line conditions of 5, 5 line center line conditionized system, equal lines of 3. So we take the 3 lines and set locations in a line in position of 2, center communication setting, directing lines of 32 line measure, set location to its all set location to capacity. Now the line interference line conditions high system brackets is 5, brackets is 3 line interference, we put the 5 line centered above location at all levels, pyramid set line interference, 53 line channels operation phenomena, done by equation. All right, so you got 103 line setting in line communication of 53 channels. Now we take the 103 line setting. It gets complicated now because we're going through fluctuation line streams. Okay, it's going to get a lot more confusing because the Fibonacci line swirl of the Earth line rotation is center its communication system. Setting calculation line and direct location system into lines of DNA track line, center line position location operation surface is set communication setting, directing signals and set locations. Center its setting line interference. Now the track line communication line opens up its signal. Setting lines of graph lines and line interference in one track location. Setting position of 2, 3, and 4, and 5 set locations. Right? Now we take the lines of Stargate line interference. That puts in a 24,000 line stream locations in position location of galaxy settings. Now the rotation spin cycle sets line position of 1 over lines of 0 in position of 3. Okay. Now that graphs lines its wave line. The center lines its calculations equal line to its Merkaba up and Merkaba down. Its center line communications. Right. The center lines its calculations high in interference and travel communication. Right. Travel communication line streams its line setting down line, shifts its cross line, and crosses string lines in set location system. Indirect signals in position location to its outblades and set locations. Right. So travels, line communications, open line settings, and travel connections. Right. Done by equation. All right, so the outblades, line conditions of the capillars. We go through the lines and line interference. Those sets line conditions of wall connectors. We've got a wall connector line setting, line interference of string locations. All right. This opens up signals of panels. So the capillars sets line calculation in the center. The center line conditions of 3 waving cycles. Now the rotation line interference comes into the line conditions alpha line rotations across the string lines. Right, some timelines opens up sequence patterns. We get graph lines, interference line, cross lines, signal lines, high interference location of travels. Setting direct signal locations crosses signals line and position location to its measure and set locations. Done by equation. All right, so getting into line conditions of moon surface. Now moon surface sets line calculation setting. Now this escalates its line calculation to its crevice. Okay, this crater lines its set line connection system to line interference and track locations. Right. That center lines its communications into 3, 4 line set locations. So line communication line interference in position track lines. So we also have to have Pluto, center communication and security lines, its direct line signals, setting direct line signal to the sun and position location to its moon of operation. All right. Center lines its center line communication in set lines calculations into 3 set line conditions. Right. So it's 1, 2, 3. So we have four lines of 3. Now equal lines of 7. 7 lines at 7 line interference, 7 track communications, and 7 box centers. Box is set location setting and higher set locations. Done by equation. All right, so everything I'm doing, I'm putting line communications into proxy. Now proxy channel is understanding how to divide lines of system line connecting the high interference location and position of track line. Now, the recognition of line interference is trying to understand how to use the proton line setting. So we have proton line position locations and 3 set locations, right? Center calculation, triangulation of 3 lines: center line position, and center line position. Okay, so it sets up appearing lines, cross lines, stream locations, right? Center line communications into another dimensional sail and operation circle, and sets location system and higher settings. That directs line signals and line interference of 0 and 1, 0 and 2, 0 and 3, 0 and 4, 0 and 5, 0 and 6, and 0 and 7 location setting. That direct line center line conditions to the sun in position of track line. Center communication to moon in the opposite direct location system. Travels line setting and rotations to the sun. Sets correlated line interference and triangulation of dimensional line settings in 3 set locations. Done by equation. All right. So if you're really, really close, you can see the intelligence. See it? Now really understand how things work in all formation location line screens. Now you got a position, location, and directions. All right. So you've got the waving lines of grounds, waving lines of circles, waving lines of rotations, and waving lines of operation. 4 line settings. Okay. Waving line interference. We have alpha line, we have a delta, we have a theta line communications. We got a beta line and a circle line and a zero operation surface. Now that triangle line is center line interference location, earth line rotation, surface locations. This channel lines its frequencies and 3 line center locations and measure and correlation. Setting direct line centers and 3 waving line centers. So 4 lines of channel and 3 lines of calculations. 4 equals 3 equal lines of the line condition 7 and balance calculations. Done by equation. So I balance the earth line rotation surface into calculation settings into normals. The seat signatures is pattern. The recognition line calculation system puts the alpha lines of data, setting a line communication of theta into omega and an operation surface and set location that travels in sun rotation. Done by equation. All right. Center communication online signals is setting direct line signals in high set locations. Right. So you have to really understand how to use this through provision. Okay. Okay, coming into tone division locations and static line settings. All right, how's everybody doing? Heather, calculations on levels of Geneva and position location of Tina line interference of Chris communications all levels, high center interference and position of Hemdall, calculation of Johnny and Gypsy position high setting, and track location of Nina position location high interference. Now, we all have to understand how the 103 sets line communications into bracket line conditions to its hanger set line conditions. Get a bracket, make it a hanger. So the hanger lines is center lines and line interference. Now that's 24 trillion set location settings and position of direction. All right. Now it gets complicated, right? So we set the zero line and center lines of zero operation surface. Okay. Now we take the 1 line in the center, 0 in operation center, and 3 set location system. Now that tracks lines of 24 line setting line interference. Opens calculation of 24, 24, 24, 24. Okay, so we have the center of 24, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so all ground lines, the earth perception lines are 24 line signature now. Okay, set positions. So earth perception line center location, clocks is line center locations of pi. Clocks is line center locations of pi. Clocks is line center locations of pi. In position of pi, in positions of pi. Done through equation, right? Clock line centers are set up. So we got the north line setting line interference instead of location settings. So we got the 24 line signatures up and then 24 line center communication down, cross line stream, line interference instead of location system, 4 line centers, line interference in position of 2, equal line calculation negative or positive, positive, positive. 3 positive line interference, negative location and negative line interference, sets left position locations in a positive line calculation stream. All right. So line connection line interference, we take the 4 lines, okay, it's 4 lines up, 4 lines down, 4 lines across, 4 lines across. So 4 line settings, 4 direct locations, and set lines. So we bracket the 2 communication line interference of 4 channels. Force lines is communication, center lines of 4 line center locations in the left and right, channel communication. Done by equation. Okay, pi of recognition line calculation settings. Now, we got line center lines of 6. 6 equals lines of 24. 24 lines equal locations equals 7. All right? Now, equal line calculation is line calculation system of longitude and position location of latitude set locations. All right? Now, those channels lines of pi, the set lines, center line communication, setting interference, yin and yang of process calculations. All right? So the center communication in the earth line is a rotation center of surface. Now, the center calculation setting has to operate its surface location system in line calculation center operation. Now, in that line communication, your earth is in the center communication of its setting, right? So its center line is position location of track lines, and interference position of probe locations to electrical lights, electrical panels, and electrical surface location system. Done by equation. Now, rotation spin cycles, understand the galaxy lines. The galaxy lines shifts lines to its communication setting. This redirect locations of panels. 1 line setting into position of 2. Yin and yang process. Okay, so the earth lines its rotation surface and 2 lines have angles. Setting correlation line interference and position location into 7 lines into all levels of spherical sphere line conditions. Now the channel line interference sets lines of 2, line condition of 6, line position of 4, and set location system. 4 lines of 5, 5 lines of 7, 7 lines of 8. Now the 8 lines center line condition of 9, 9 position of 10. 11 crosses line stream, and 12 sets line and center communications processes its line calculation setting into 103 and 53 locations. Done by equation. So There's a lot of calculation line settings. There's coming in high line communications, heat patterns, heat formation line stream. We have to really recognize all communication when it comes into formation to its allocation system. All right, seeing the Earth's spin changing directions, we already hit the 40-degree rotation of polar direct line settings into the solstice. Very good, Chris. So you guys have to really understand how this platitudes its line communications, guys. You have to really understand why you have the Schumann resonance in front of you. But the Schumann resonance is not just in front, it's not just in back, it's not just inside. Here, it's inside you, right? Everything's inside. Center calculation, you are the center. This is you trying to balance you in all locations. You are the center of operation. That's it. That's all it is. So you understand line communications. So this has to go with this at the same time location. Clock and line settings, high line is travel, set line position location, higher line is a measure, right? Setting communication. If you fall off the line interference, set line communication setting, this is what comes into its allocation system. Okay, so you got to go with the wave cycles. You got to go with the continuous force line of set location setting, the direct signals. Calculation line and in line rotation positions, kaleidoscope location of the sun, kaleidoscope locations of the moon, track line conditions of projection. Okay, so you really have to understand everything through its calculation line interference. Your balance line communication comes into two scales. All right, you got the scale line settings and direct signal. Direct and line center line interference is set locations to ground line operation to center line communication. There's the intelligence. Now, line calculating line interference is the sun rotation surface set locations high interference. This sets up barometer line interference at set locations. Now, the channel line and stream line interference platitude location setting that grounds lines at shift lines into 144. So basically, the crop circle line and center line interference in position location is crystallized and set location to its ground lines. Now, this rotates its surface and travels. So the UFO sets lines at ground lines and rotates its surface location's high setting. Directs its signals back in line communication to its moon and set location system, travel. Setting line and line rotation interference, 41 line settings, setting correlation system, tracks lines of calculations, and travels line interference. So once you reach the 144, it platitudes lines of walking surface location at higher levels of holographic line conditions. Done by equation. All right. So calculation to a system is really understand the avatar when it comes into all calculation, the astral travels, astral connections, astral projections. You have to really understand how to use the force recognition setting. This is power over pi. Very powerful set of locations, all right? So you have to understand you have a gravity line, you have an operation surface, you have a triangulation line setting, triangle line interference, a box position of triangle, Fibonacci line interference, double helix line communications, 103 line setting into 53 calculation line streams, box line position location triangulation of 3 set line condition system, triangulation line and position of box line and center line interference, T reception line calculation center, ground line and rotation surface into its pyramid activation line calculation stream in set location system and direct signals. Done by equation. So everything is operated in center line communication uses interline connections. It's the interception locations of interfacing. So interline. Line setting, calculation system. So 24, 24, again, 24, and 24. That's how it's set up. And 4 line signatures. All right. So 24 equals line conditions and levels. Back line, center lines at 12, 4 line communication at 12. Right. Saying calculation line interference, left position, line conditions, right position, line conditions. So hemisync in the center line calculations, center operation surface, location, high center interference. 2 double helix and line communication setting and direct signals and set locations. Now this interlaces its line communications and levels and 3 track location settings. Box lines its TV reception line of calculation and position of traction. Changes line communication high center interference into box location system. Done by equation. All right. Interlacing lines of communication setting, high interference is all levels of travel. Now the Schumann resonance line calculation settings is the box line rotations into rectangle. Sets correlation line interference and travel communications out of its box location signal. Now, in that direct line signal sets the line condition levels, panel lines, interference, electrical lines, and positional operations of surface locations. That channel lines is line graph lines, alpha line rotation, center line interference, and travel communications. Setting up capillars and set lines of downshift line, cross lines, and 2 lines and 3 lines and 4 lines and 5 line positions. Travel communications, center line communication line, and center line in position. Operates at surface location, high travel communications. Center lines at downshift, cross line, center line interference and track locations. Changing all communication settings and direct signals in set locations. High clock line, center lines at 3 lines, and 6 position of 9 set location system. Done by equation. All right, so geometric operation lines of geotherium. Now, line positioning is really understanding how to formulate set location. All right. So when you get in that line communication setting, the capillars in line calculation setting is setting up proxy location of channel lines. So this blocks its surface locations of 2 line systems. All right. So you got 4 lines of waves and you got 4 division locations. All right. 2 generation lines of atom lines and rotation surface, line condition system of 3 lines and 3 set location system. So that line's its line interference of 4/3 in set line condition system. So you take the 4 lines in position of 3, in position of 4 lines in position of 3 set location system, 4 generation line settings, 3 activation line streams, 4 line position locations into 3 measure in correlation system. They equal lines of pi equal line conditions of Earth, in a line communication setting, redirect line calculation system, and track line. Done by equation. All right. You look really, really close, you can see the intelligent locations. All right. Everything is a formation location of view through phase direction settings. You have to really understand how to modify our set location system. So when you understand these things, it's done instantly, which is amazing. But you have to understand how the process line connections works for you inside location settings. It's interfacing all position, which is the highest levels of awareness of information, right? Being aware to set line condition system to a Schumann resonance line, graph lines, guys. Okay. That's when you have to truly understand how this works in 3-line communication settings. All calculators modify high line interference and line communications, crossing signals in set locations. Okay. How it works in all formation line setting and direction. Setting signal lines, space lines, and communication set location settings. Right? Really understand what your Schumann resonance is. It platted its line communication lines of zero line, power lines, and magnetic highway information line. Rotates its surface location of its earth line, setting correlation center lines and center line communication line. Applied to line interference lets line communications into center communications in set locations. Right? So you have to understand that the line calculation system is all direct location to its cloud of operation surface and set location system. That my equation. Look at the intelligence. So there's a lot of things that have to be in position of balance. Okay, balance is the key to anything line setting. So setting calculation is masculine and feminine. Masculine and feminine. Okay, masculine and feminine. It's not just location left and right. It's position north, south, and east now because you're coming into weather patterns. You're coming into summer, spring, winter, and fall. And the Earth perception has to redirect the megahertz line calculation system in direct line setting is set locations. Okay? So this is where we're coming in line communication center of, right? Masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. Diamond core line setting, line interference, center communication, right? Redirecting line settings, how to travel line condition system, down lines, cross lines, stream lines, operation lines, and magnet high interference. Now, setting lines of zero line rotation surface, grounding your settings, right? Masculinity, femininity. Whoa! Masculinity, femininity. Whoa! Masculinity, femininity. Whoa! Masculinity, femininity. What do you have? 4 lines, center line interference of pyramid activation, streamlines of 5, direct location of center. You see the pyramids? You understand why you have to have masculine and femininity? Masculinity, femininity, pyramid. Masculine, femininity, pyramid. Masculine, femininity, pyramid, right? That's the calculation modification when it comes to high line triangles and line conditions, box surface location to a setting, and direct line conditions to its position. All set locations, all right? The center operation is you in all location, all right? That's my equation. So that's set up line conditions. So now we got the 24 line setting. 24 equals line conditions of 1 of 3. 1 of 3 line center is 53. 3 line center, line interference, travels its communications into two Merkabas, two positions and position line conditions, right? So this modifies the sunline and calculation system, puts heat signature patterns correlation system to one track, two line settings, and four track location. Done by equation. So this simplifies everything for the ground lines. You have to really understand how to use the 24 line setting. Equal lines of 48 window, 40 line inner line rotation position. So that's 4 lines of 8 in set location system. Center lines of communication, 8 lines, split 8 lines set location system. Solstice on both panels line stream. Now, in calculation line interference, we take the 4 line and position equal lines of 6. 6 crosses string lines of the moon, operates as surface location of ground lines. Now we take the 2 lines in position of 4, setting lines of another 6 line calculation system. So the moon is operating to its compillers and line calculation setting to direct signal. Direct to signal line is a 4 lines and high interference, travels communication lines of 6 over 4, 4 over pi, 5 over 7, 7 over lines of 12. Now the 12 lines of 13 is tracking lines of interference. That is pi over direction of time sequence. This puts position location of track lines into your polarities. It's calculating in solstice calculation of sun lines and communication of its moon that operates as system locations and 8 channel line interference of space, 8 channel location of time, line calculation of lines of 4 9 lines of high interference location of 3 lines position of measure, correlations of box, line center triangulation line interference, 7 correlation of line position location in digital frames, setting line and interference locations in 24 times 6 line interference line calculation system, puts direct line calculation setting into 12, 24, 48, 72, and 144 correlation system of balance and set line conditions. Tracking centers in all set location system. Done through equation. All right, modify lines to ground lines in Schumann resonant location system. Now, how we see our self line is communication to its I receptor. Sending calculation setting, all calculations into your line communications to your pyramid set line conditions. Travel line settings, travel line settings, travel line settings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 locations. All right. Comes in position locations. All right. Comes in position locations. All right. So if you look really close, you can actually see the line communication high setting, directing signals, crossing streams, and set locations in 12 line measure. All right. That's it. Now this center lines is communication. Now when you're in line interference and line communication line in line rotation, center line is communication setting grounds. Now it rotates its surface locations and downshift line settings. If you look really, really close, you can see the intelligent locations of its eyes looking down. Multipass. The center calculation lines is a zero operation surface. The pyramid activation lines is a graph line, streamlines, and set location of 2 panels. Line conditions of 4 panel line calculation system. So that's 6 over pi, 6 over division. Center calculation lines of the sun is 6. Center line communication of the moon is 6. 6 line calculation line interference is ground lines in 6. And center communication is 6. 6 lines of 7, 7 calculations of pyramids in set location setting, down by equation. So it's amazing how it travels its line communication setting, all calculation line positions. So it's actually in position locations looking down, bird's eye view, set location setting, to your rotations of your earth line conditions, down by equation. So setting that in calculation line positions, right? It's pretty powerful when you set communications of all levels of division location across center. Line connecting high interference is to understand how you set communication lines, all set location system, right? Same planes of communication, right? So when you get to the center line communication system, the Earth changes line calculations, streamlines, center line position, location, directions. And so that correlates the line center line interference of its dimensional sail that crosses streamline conditions into 4 line settings. Remember, there's always 4 lines and set lines of 3 because you're always working with 7. Always working with 7. Why? Because it's the 7 bodies of water of you. Why do you think I always have 4 lines of 3? Why do you think there's 4 of everything in set locations to your weather and set location system, right? Why do you think there's north, west, south, and east? 4, right? So why are there position locations of summer, winter, fall, and spring? Why is it 4? Why is it number 4? There's a reason why we're balancing calculation line settings in your track communication system. You're always going to be working with your chakras of 7 calculations of bodies of water. You have to balance these things out over time. through the Schumann resonance, through the frequencies and the high set location settings, a vibration of its harmonic location channels. This is how it changes the geometry line setting and track communication setting direct location system. Nanos of a second, 60,000 lines of a second, 60 million miles of a second location system. It's all levels of travel calculations and 7 bodies of water set location. All right. So once you understand the foundational line setting, then you understand the zero gravity and what it is to track traction. So we got the zero line rotations, and then 1 lines of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You're always working with 7. Longitude and latitude, right? Bandwidth, broad bandwidth calculation lines. Recognition line calculation high interference. Now your line interference is calculated modify, coming into calculation setting line interference of 1 track into 0 line in 3 position locations. That's 1 line setting in position of right. And we do the line communications, 1 line into 0 line into 3 set location. Bounce communications, left and right. All right. Now, line calculation line interference takes all calculations. Now, in that direct signal, we take the channel line and the operation stream line and set locations in 98 settings. 98 line in and line rotations, equal line condition setting line position of 108. That's Fahrenheit over Celsius. Calculation position of track line. Setting calculation position locations. Center lines is positioned. So this is where we come into channel line interference in position of 111, in position of 112, in position of 113, in position of 114. Setting location of waiting signal. Done by equation. It's all set up. Okay. So lines of calculation when it comes into the summer lines at center line. That's the solstice locations. The spring line calculation line interference backs location to the center line in high interference at 112 location setting, which is your calculation DNA settings. 1 line that's 13 comes into position locations in the fall. Now the fall line sets lines of 3 line rotation, and 114 is position locations of its winter that sets correlation system of your solar panels of its rotation surface and set location setting and direct signal into your earth line calculation system of bounce calculation. Done by equation. It's all set up. So there's a lot of calculation line settings that are setting up right now in the earth perception line screens. Okay, T reception lines, interline calculation system, interface position of channel operation locations. All right, very complicated stuff, but it's all done. Okay, maps of equation are now lines of communication setting. So the earth perception line string locations. Mother Earth is coming into a new line communications into all levels of a new weather line. Okay, in position. Okay, summer, spring, winter, and fall. We're going to change lines of density set location settings in direct location signal. It's all set location system. When it's set up to 98 line settings of degrees and line interference of 108 location. Channel streamline interference of left and position of right. The calculation line and line rotation interference is bound calculation lines, a hemisync line connection system. This redirect line connection to your cloud lines in 103 and lines of left and right set location system. Balancing correlation line settings of new weather pattern and set location settings. Longitude and latitude and bandwidth and calculation system of its broader line calculation setting in spectral communication and set location. Okay? Done by equation. So, trying to understand how powerful it is, what we're coming into, right? That's what I'm saying. The process of communication is really just focusing on yourself now, more than ever. Okay. Because you have to understand the center of you is changing inside, which is changing everything outline setting locations. So now as they understand the provisional locations of the percentage location of setting is really understand how to use the mechanism line calculation that travels, because the calculation setting to your earth perception line setting is coming into its double helix. And that double helix line communication is 103 to 53 lines of phenomenon that's going to open up channel line stream location and travel out to its galaxy setting. It's getting ready to hit the galaxies. So in that position of directions, you have to understand how to recognize the waving patterns. Now, waving pattern is a central communication of a line calculation. circulatory, circulation, and rotation. Okay? Understanding the inner core line setting, how fast it tracks lines and ground lines, the gravitational pull set location system. Your Earth line has an axle, and an axle is calculated through its flywheel. That flywheel is a Mechan line calculation line setting that's connected to all positions to its atom. The atom is a rotation surface, sets line connection in the highest setting. Now, in track line communication system, there's actually 12 atoms in each chakra setting. Multi-pass. There has to be. Because it's the electrical core that's connected to the split line interference. It's set communication line and position locations. You know what you have to do? This is all it is. Calculation Earth perception line setting. How do you come into all communication in this line setting? What do you think that is? Your center communication is this. You kind of have to come into the center communication. Center lines of north, center lines of east, center lines of west, and center lines of south. Okay? Yin and yang. Now, the actual set lines of communication setting has to really understand the Schumann resonance of waveline center location of center of operation. Center communications, operation center, operation magnetic highway information. So in that communication setting, you have to really understand how to balance out the masculine and the feminine line interference of your interlines of its interlacing. The communication line setting opens all levels of your calculations to your key reception line of communication. Data port streams, data port line setting, data port line interference, and position locations to your intercept location is interfacing this line setting. Okay? Center communication line and position is opening up all calculation settings of travels and set location. Okay? So we have to really understand all levels of balance inside location are settings now inside through the Schumann resonance. Because it's changing track lines. It's changing so many positions of coloration. The line connecting is extremely powerful because you understand that it's creating its own geometry and location of its shape. That's its own construction lines. The avatar is its own engineer. So it has to master the communication of vibration of frequencies to understand how it intervolts its calculation setting to its electrical lights of its panels of operation. Okay. To set connections of high center interference. Okay. Ripples of the ground lines, rotations of the surface, axle location setting and position locations, Earth rotations in the spherical sphere location setting, line connecting to a magnetic highway information setting. Come on, guys, that's what this is. It's all levels of how you come into your position line directions. You're reaching high calculation line setting, and you have electrical core that's in the center of its operation that you're trying to balance every single day through your emotional system. That's all it is. So it's a windshield wiper, or it's in a glitch, right? So it's got to go what? Forward, 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 forward. It can't go back, right? The central system has to go forward. The central communication has to go forward. Your heart has to palpitate going forward because it sets off a line connection, high center interference, the track communication says opens all calculation line interference as that location setting. It's redirect location system. It's the final line condition of the levels. This defragmentation is line setting into fragmentations over pi. Factoring calculation line and line rotation interference. Its center line is communication of force of recognition, force of calculations, force of continuum, a set location setting, and set locations. Okay? So you have to take control of line settings in either inside position. All right. That's all levels of you. Right. Especially now, because the calculation modification, your motion line setting is going to be in so many lines of streamlines into Schumann locations, the colorations of patterns. High calculation center, taking you guys into static line interference and set locations to your solar panels. You guys are already connecting line interference. We come in at the solstice, right? But you understand what that means. What's it mean? Solar operation, levels, teleportation, intelligence of communication of its energy. That's what it means. Now, understanding what it means, you get a better understanding how your Earth perceives you through location. It's all calculated, modify, and set line conditions, how you see everything through vortex locations of visions. Visionary line and line rotation interference sets all communication in its system, especially when you come into space-time through pi. This gets you in all direct line signals inside the location system. All right. So we have a quiz today. All right. About the Schumann resonance. Did you draw it on paper or is it in the mind? All right. So in that calculations, all line interference. Bring the team back in the reception location, Schumann resonance, balance calculation setting 103, balance calculation T reception line setting, team line interference, and position location of 53, set locations. All right. Guys are back. It's that line condition system. 5 to minutes. See you soon. Adios.